Welcome back, my weirdlings. We have stepped into quarter 2 of Raven's Lorecast, the season of thresholds. If quarter 1 was about origins, about where we come from, quarter 2 is about crossing. Crossing out of what no longer fits, crossing toward what is becoming, crossing the quiet line between survival and alignment. You don't have to be perfect to cross. You only have to be willing. So wherever you're listening from, I'm glad you're here. Because this quarter, we are not chasing perfection. We are practicing becoming. All right, weird ones. Wit, wisdom, witchcraft. Let's begin. Weird ones, come in. Close the door behind you. Not because anything is chasing you, but because the world is loud, and this circle is a vow. Take a breath with me. In and out. Good. If you've got a candle nearby, go ahead and light it. If you don't, imagine one. Because magic has never cared about props. It cares about presence. And tonight, we are present on purpose. Because tonight is a Sabbat. Tonight is Ostara. The turning of the wheel. The return of the green. The moment the earth looks us dead in the eyes and says, yes, again. Even after everything, even after the cold, even after the grief, even after the long stretch of holding your breath without realizing you were doing it. Ostara is the season that doesn't ask whether you're ready. It arrives anyway. Soft, persistent, unapologetic. And if you're feeling that strange, tender pressure in your chest lately, like something is waking up inside you, you're not imagining it. That's the world shifting. That's spring touching the edge of your life like a fingertip. That's the old spell returning. Life begins again. And so do you. Now, weird ones, tonight isn't just a celebration. Tonight is a relocation because the manor has moved. And you already know what that means. The manor doesn't travel like a building. It doesn't pack boxes. It doesn't consult a calendar. It moves the way thresholds move, quietly, deliberately, and only when the world is ready for the next lesson. It moves like a living spell, like a place that has its own knowing, like a door that appears only when you're brave enough to step through. And tonight, the manor has stepped east. Not because we are tourists, not because we are collectors of other people's sacredness, not because we're playing dress up in someone else's traditions. No. We are here to witness, to honor, to learn, because spring belongs to no single culture. It belongs to the earth, and every people across every land has watched the world soften again and tried to name that miracle without breaking it. So tonight, we honor the Far East with reverence. We don't flatten it. We don't remix it. We don't take what isn't ours and call it spiritual. We stand at the edge of it like respectful guests, quiet, grateful, paying attention. And as always, we anchor ourselves in the canon of Raven's world. The manor is called Madhya Patika, which means the middle traveler, because it lives between worlds, between moments, between what was and what is becoming. And the lore keeper, me, doesn't chase the world. The world comes to me, not because I'm special, because the manor listens to the wheel, because it knows where the story needs to go next. And this week, the story needed blossoms, lantern light, mountain silhouettes, soft wind carrying petals like whispered blessings. This week, the house wanted spring to arrive like a poem. And it did. So picture it with me. The manor settles into place the way a deep breath settles into your ribs. There's no earthquake, no announcement, just a shift, a hush, a sense of, oh, we're somewhere else now. Outside, the air is cool, but no longer cruel. The light has changed, warmer, golden, patient, like dawn filtered through paper walls. And in the courtyard, something waits. Not a threat, not a spectacle, a presence, a guardian, a teacher, a crane. Tall, still, elegant as a vow. In many cultures across East Asia, cranes carry powerful symbolism, longevity, peace, fidelity, grace. They are creatures that look like they remember the world before we rushed it. And tonight, the crane is our chosen animal, not as decoration, as omen, as threshold witness. The crane doesn't scramble. It doesn't panic. It doesn't beg the season to hurry. It stands. It watches. It moves only when movement matters. And weird ones, that is Ostara energy. Not frantic blooming, not performative renewal, just the quiet courage of opening, the courage of letting life return to you, even if you're still healing, even if you're still afraid, even if you're still learning how to trust joy again. Because here's what spring teaches every single year. You don't have to be finished to begin. You don't have to be perfect to bloom. You just have to be willing. So tonight, I want you to set one intention, not a 5-year plan, not a demand, just one small truth you're ready to let in. Maybe it's rest. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's pleasure. Maybe it's softness. Maybe it's hope, the thing you swore you wouldn't touch again because it hurt too much last time. Whatever it is, let it be simple. Let it be real, and let the crane teach you how to hold it quietly, steadily, without rushing the miracle. Because the equinox has just passed, that brief moment when day and night are equal, balanced, whole. And now the light is returning, not all at once, not dramatically, but faithfully, the way it always does. So breathe again, weird ones. In and out. Welcome to episode 17, Sabbats across the globe, Ostara in the Far East. The manor has moved. The blossoms are falling like blessings, and spring is waiting, not for you to earn it, but for you to step into it. Now, close your eyes and come with me. Let's walk into the lore of the East, blossom by blossom, breath by breath. Close your eyes, my weirdlings, and imagine a spring morning in the Far East. Not the kind you see in movies, not the kind you reduce to a postcard. The real kind. The kind that arrives quietly, like the world is trying not to wake the sleeping gods too fast. The air is cool, but no longer cruel. The light is soft, gold-edged, patient. And somewhere nearby, water is moving. A stream, a river, a tea kettle, the slow sound of thaw. This is the first truth of spring across so many regions. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It returns like a vow kept. And this week, the manor, Madhya Pitika, the middle traveler, has stepped east. Not because we are here to borrow, not because we are here to mix sacred practices like ingredients in a trendy spiritual stew. We are here to witness, to honor, to learn. Because spring belongs to no one, but it is honored by everyone. And the way people honor it tells you everything about what they value, what they protect, what they mourn, what they celebrate, what they believe about the relationship between human beings and the living earth. So tonight, we are holding Ostara as a Sabbat, a turning of the wheel of the year, a hinge of light, a threshold of renewal. And we are also looking outward with respect at how spring is recognized, welcomed, and tended across the Far East, not as a costume, as a conversation. Ostara is not spring vibes. Ostara is the moment the world changes its mind. It is the earth saying, enough of the dark, enough of the holding, enough of the waiting. It's the season of return, return of light, return of green, return of warmth, return of possibility. But it's also a season of risk, because beginning again always costs something. Spring is not just pretty. Spring is bold. Every bud is a gamble. Every bloom is a declaration. Every sprout is a tiny act of defiance against the memory of winter. And if you've been through a long personal winter, grief, burnout, loss, depression, trauma, survival mode, then you know beginning again is not easy. It's not aesthetic. It's terrifying because hope makes you vulnerable. Spring asks you to open, even when you're still afraid of freezing again. Ostara is not the season of everything is fine. Ostara is the season of I will try anyway. That's the Sabbat. That's the spell. Now let's talk about why the Far East is such a powerful place to witness spring through a sacred lens. Across East Asia and parts of Southeast Asia, spring is often honored not with loud conquest energy, but with attention, with presence, with an understanding that beauty is not something you seize. It's something you notice. And that is a spiritual practice all by itself. Spring arrives through blossoms that last only days, winds that shift like mood, rains that soften the ground, light that changes the color of everything without asking permission. And the human response to that, again and again, is not domination. It's relationship. Not how do I control nature, but how do I live in harmony with nature? That is a different kind of power. And it's exactly what Ostara asks for when you strip it down to its bones. Live in right relationship with the turning world. Let's speak carefully here, because blossoms are easy to romanticize. But blossoms, across many regions, are not just pretty spring things. They are a lesson. They are a philosophy. They are a mirror held up to mortality, because blossoms are brief. They arrive, they peak, they fall, and they do it without apology. They do it without clinging. They do it without bargaining. They teach the kind of sacred truth most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Nothing stays. So love what you can while it's here. That is not nihilism. That is devotion. And weird ones, that is also a very Raven lesson. Because if you've listened to this show at all, you already know I am not here to sell you fantasy. I'm here to hand you reverence. And reverence begins with accepting impermanence. Spring is not eternal. That's why it is holy. Now here's where we anchor back into Raven's world. The manor, Madhya Pathika, doesn't arrive in a place like this by accident. It arrives because the wheel calls it, because the lore needs a new landscape, because the house teaches in chapters. And this chapter is about subtle rebirth. Not the rebirth that kicks down doors, the rebirth that opens a window, the rebirth that happens when you stop forcing your healing and start letting it unfold. When the manor moves, it doesn't come to conquer a place. It comes to listen. It settles into the land like it's asking permission. And in the quiet spaces, the courtyard, the eaves, the garden stones, the soft lantern light, you can feel it. The house breathing, the house learning, the house holding its own kind of reverence, because the manor is not just a setting, it's a living threshold, and thresholds are sacred everywhere. And yes, there is a crane, not as a lecture, not as an archetype breakdown, not as a symbolic scavenger hunt, just presence, a visitor, a quiet witness, a creature that stands in stillness like stillness is a kind of strength. The crane doesn't demand attention, it receives it. It doesn't rush the season, it trusts it. And tonight, in the courtyard of the manor, the crane is a reminder that spring doesn't need you frantic, it needs you awake. Now let's talk about the deeper work of Ostara, because this is where the Sabbat stops being seasonal poetry and becomes spiritual practice. Ostara asks, what are you growing? Not what are you dreaming? Anyone can dream. What are you actually growing? What are you feeding? What are you tending? What are you watering with your time, your energy, your choices? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Everything you give your attention to becomes your altar. Yes, even the things you hate, especially the things you doom scroll. especially the arguments you replay, especially the shame you keep feeding like it's a pet you didn't mean to adopt. Ostara says, choose your garden, and choosing your garden is not toxic positivity. It's discernment. It's sovereignty. It's the quiet decision to stop growing what you don't want to live inside. The equinox has just passed, and the equinox isn't just a date. It's a spiritual event, a cosmic hinge, a moment when the world is balanced, light and dark meeting as equals. And if you've been living through extremes, overworking, overthinking, overgiving, overfunctioning, the equinox arrives like a hand on your shoulder saying, come back to center. Balance doesn't mean you never struggle. Balance means you stop living like chaos is your only setting. Balance means you stop treating peace like it's suspicious. Balance means you let your life have rhythm again. Rest and work. Solitude and community. Grief and laughter. Sacred and mundane. Ostara doesn't demand perfection. It asks for equilibrium. Now, I want to speak carefully and lovingly here. There are many spring traditions across East Asia and the Far East that deserve respect, specificity, and humility. And we are not here to take them. We are here to honor that human beings across the world have always marked seasonal turning points with cleaning and renewal, offerings and prayers, gatherings and meals, honoring ancestors, welcoming fertility and life, celebrating beauty that does not last. Some traditions emphasize the home, the hearth, the family, the renewal of daily life. Some emphasize the land, planting, preparation, seasonal foods, the return of certain animals. Some emphasize the spirit world, remembrance, ritual purity, the relationship between living and dead. And across them, the common thread is this: spring is not a mood. Spring is responsibility. Because when life returns, you have to meet it with care. You have to be worthy of the bloom, not by being perfect, by being present. Now let's talk about symbols. Because yes, eggs show up. Seeds show up. Flowers show up. But they're not cute. They're universal because they're true. An egg is potential. A seed is possibility. A bud is courage. Spring symbols exist because humans needed language for the same miracle. Something begins again. And if you've ever had to begin again after devastation, you know, beginning again is holy. It is not small. It is not trivial. It is a form of bravery the world rarely rewards properly. So tonight, whether your spring symbol is an egg, a blossom, a cup of tea, a swept floor, a quiet vow, it counts. Because the symbol is not the magic. The attention is. Now here's the part I want you to take personally, weirdlings. Ostara is not just about the Earth's rebirth. It's about yours. Because spring doesn't just happen outside you. It happens inside you. And it often begins as the smallest, strangest feeling. A desire you thought was gone. a hope you swore you wouldn't touch again, a creative urge that returns like a bird to an old nesting place. And your job is not to interrogate it. Your job is to protect it, to hold it gently, to water it without demanding it become a forest overnight, to let it be small and real, because the world has trained so many of us to believe we have to earn joy, earn softness, earn beauty, earn rest. But spring doesn't earn its return. It returns because it's the nature of the world to turn. So if you've been waiting for permission to begin again, Ostara is your permission slip, signed by the sun, stamped by the soil, delivered by blossoms. Here's a practice you can do tonight that is simple, respectful, and deeply aligned with the season. Open a window, even just a crack. Take one breath of the outside air, then say aloud, I welcome what is returning. That's it. No performance, no borrowed ritual, just relationship. Spring doesn't need your spectacle. Spring needs your willingness. And now we look up, because the sky tonight is going to mirror everything we've just spoken. A young crescent moon, early growth, early promise. A grounded Taurus steadiness, slow becoming. A hidden Neptune, mystery working behind the veil. A post-equinox world, light returning, balance shifting. So take a breath, weird ones. We've honored the turning of the wheel. We've honored the East with reverence. We've honored the Manor's movement as living canon. Now let's look at the heavens and see how spring is written in the sky. Weird ones, let's look up, because tonight's sky is doing that thing it only does at the very beginning of spring. It doesn't shout, it doesn't perform, it arrives. March 22nd, 2026 is the first weekend after the spring equinox, the moment the year tips forward into light in the northern hemisphere. And whether you celebrate Ostara in a Western seasonal frame, witness spring through the lens of other regions, or simply feel the earth waking up in your bones, the sky tonight is saying the same thing. Begin again, gently, but for real. The equinox happened just 2 days ago, March 20th. That moment when day and night balance like two hands meeting in prayer. And now we're on the other side of it. The light is gaining ground. Not violently, not overnight, but steadily, which is exactly how spring works. It doesn't kick the door down. It opens it gently. Tonight, we have a waxing crescent moon, growing brighter each evening. It's still a slender curve, somewhere in that early spring range of illumination where the moon looks like a promise more than a declaration. This is not full bloom energy. This is first bud energy. This is the kind of magic that doesn't need witnesses. It happens anyway. And the moon is moving through Taurus, grounded, steady, earthy. Taurus doesn't rush. Taurus doesn't sprint toward transformation. Taurus says, if it's real, it can take its time. So while the season itself is shifting fast, equinox just passed, Aries energy rising, the moon in Taurus reminds us, don't panic grow. Don't force your becoming. Let it root. Let it stabilize. Let it be sustainable, because spring isn't just about starting, it's about continuing. Now, here's the most quietly powerful astronomical note of the night. Neptune is in solar conjunction with the sun, which means Neptune is essentially hidden in the sun's glare, on the far side of the sun from our perspective, completely unobservable. You cannot see it. You cannot track it with your naked eye. You cannot prove it with a dramatic sky moment. It is invisible. And I love that for us, because Neptune rules the unseen: dreams, intuition, myth, spirit, longing, fog, the dissolving of certainty. Neptune doesn't care about your need for clarity. It cares about your capacity for mystery. So tonight, the sky carries a paradox. The season is turning toward light, but one of the most mystical planets is completely hidden. Translation? You don't need to understand everything to begin again. You don't need perfect certainty to move forward. You can step into spring with unanswered questions in your pocket. You can bloom without knowing exactly who you'll become. The unseen is still working, even when you can't track it. Mercury has recently stationed direct, ending its retrograde around March 20th. So if the last few weeks felt like crossed wires, miscommunications, delays, mental fog, emotional static, why is everything taking longer than it should? Yeah, that's real. Now Mercury is moving forward again, but it's still in its shadow phase, which means the energy doesn't snap back instantly. It's more like waking up slowly, like opening your eyes after a long sleep and letting the room come into focus. So this is a good week for revisiting conversations, rewriting plans, returning to projects that stalled, forgiving yourself for not being as productive as you wanted. Spring is not a performance review. It's a reset. Now, in the evening sky, the crescent moon appears close to Uranus and the Pleiades star cluster, the Seven Sisters. Uranus itself requires binoculars or a telescope to see clearly, but the symbolism of its presence is delicious. Uranus is the planet of disruption, awakening, sudden change, the unexpected pivot. And with the moon in Taurus, the sign that likes stability, this is a reminder that spring often arrives like this. Not as a gentle suggestion, but as a surprise yes. A sudden thaw, a new desire, a door you didn't expect to open, a truth you can't unlearn. And the Pleiades, those clustered stars, ancient and beloved across cultures, hang there like a soft lantern in the dark, not demanding attention, just reminding you that the sky has always held stories, that human beings have always looked up and tried to name what they felt. Tonight, that cluster feels like a quiet blessing. You are not the first person to begin again, and you won't be the last. High overhead, Jupiter is bright and steady, the most obvious planet as star in the sky tonight. And Jupiter is in Gemini, which means the expansion comes through questions, learning, conversation, curiosity, multiple perspectives held at once. So if spring has you feeling restless, scattered, or mentally hungry, that's not failure. That's the season waking your mind up. Jupiter in Gemini says, Follow what makes you curious. Curiosity is a compass. And while we're here, yes, the sun has entered Aries. This is the astrological new year, the ignition point, the match striking. But remember what we just said. The moon is in Taurus. So the message isn't start everything at once. The message is start something real and build it to last. Aries gives you the spark. Taurus teaches you how to keep the flame alive without burning yourself down. And yes, in the atmosphere of this episode, in the mythic texture of the manor's relocation, we have the presence of the crane, not as a lecture, not as a deep symbolic breakdown, just as a visitor, a quiet witness, a shape in the courtyard that makes you slow down and breathe differently. Sometimes spring doesn't announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as one elegant creature standing still long enough to remind you, you are allowed to move gently. You are allowed to begin softly. So here's what March 22nd is offering, weird ones. The equinox says balance is possible again. The Aries sun says begin. The Taurus moon says begin slowly but sincerely. Mercury direct says the messages will clear. Neptune hidden says you don't need proof to trust your intuition. Uranus nearby says stay open to surprise. The Pleiades say you are part of a much older story. Jupiter says let curiosity guide you. And if you want a single sentence to carry into the rest of your week, let it be this. I will not rush my rebirth, but I will not postpone it either. That is spring magic. Not frantic, not performative, just true. Welcome to the part of the ritual where we stop talking about renewal and actually become it. And yes, tonight we're flipping kitchen witchery on its head on purpose. Because Ostara in the Far East isn't just blossoms on branches. It's the body blooming too. Your skin, your hair, your breath, your senses, all waking up from winter's long, quiet hush. And this matters, weird ones, because spring doesn't only happen outside us. Spring happens in the nervous system. Spring happens in the shoulders unclenching. Spring happens in the moment you stop living like softness is something you have to earn. So tonight, instead of a full meal, we're honoring Ostara through refreshing, through clearing, through gentle tending, through small practical recipes for returning to yourself. Because the kitchen isn't only where we cook. It's where we come back to our bodies. It's where we take the raw, exhausted parts of being human and we make them livable again. And we're doing this in a way that stays aligned with the spirit of this episode. We are not borrowing sacred rituals that don't belong to us. We are not turning a region's traditions into aesthetic props. We are practicing something universal. Care. Care for the body, care for the home, care for the spirit. The kind of care that says, I am worth tending. I am allowed to begin again. I don't have to earn renewal. I only have to accept it. Tonight's kitchen witchery is a full self-renewal suite, crafted to touch every element. Earth is grounding nourishment. Water is the rejuvenation, softness. Air is the breath of release. And spirit is the rebirth. This is sensual magic. This is embodied magic. This is you choosing to return to yourself gently, fiercely, and beautifully. And as always, this is optional magic. If all you can do tonight is drink water and take one deep breath, that counts. If all you can do is wash your face and whisper, "I'm trying," that counts. Ostara isn't a performance. It's a threshold. All right, my weirdlings, let's refresh. Part 1 is our earth element, the oatmeal and avocado hair mask. This represents nourishment, grounding, fertility, and softness. The ingredients are 1 ripe avocado, a half a cup ground oats or oat flour, 2 to 3 tablespoons of warm water, 1 tablespoon of honey or agave, and 2 to 3 drops of rosemary or lavender oil, whichever one you're feeling. The ritual. First, mash the avocado until it's smooth and glossy. Stir in the ground oats, warm water, sweetener, and the essential oil. It should be thick, creamy, and earthy, like spring soil waking up. Now here is the spell work. Start at the ends of your hair. They're the oldest part of you. They've seen some stuff. Give them nourishment first. Then work upward toward the scalp, toward the new growth waiting just beneath the surface. As you coat your hair, whisper, "May what is old be softened. May what is new be nourished. May I grow gently and grow strong." Wrap your hair in a towel or cap. Let Earth do her work while we move to water. Part 2, the water element. This is a blueberry, Greek yogurt, lemon zest glow mask. This brings rejuvenation, luminosity, cleansing without stripping. This mask is ridiculous, not just because it works, but because it works beautifully. The antioxidants in the blueberries, the cultures in the Greek yogurt, and the brightness of the lemon zest combine into a revitalizing treatment that behaves like a peel without ever peeling. It leaves the skin luminous, renewed, touched by spring. Here are the ingredients. 1/3 cup fresh blueberries, 3 to 4 tablespoons Greek yogurt, 1 teaspoon of honey or agave, the zest of half a lemon, and if you have sensitive skin, I recommend adding 1 to 2 teaspoons finely ground oatmeal. The ritual begins by mashing the blueberries until they release their jewel-toned softness. Stir in the Greek yogurt, honey, and lemon zest. Your mixture should smell like sunrise and look like midnight turned into velvet. Apply it gently to your face with your fingertips. Here's a sensory cue. It will feel cool, soothing, slightly creamy, slightly electric. The lemon will brighten, the yogurt will soften, the blueberries will bless your cells with renewal. As you smooth it across your skin, speak. I welcome the glow of returning light. I release the dullness of winter. I honor the skin that carries me. Let it sit while the mask works its quiet miracle. Now part 3, the air element. This is the Ostara Blossom Shower Steamer, bringing breath, release, clarity, and equinox air. This steamer invites the breath back into your chest, the kind of breath that feels like possibility. The ingredients are 1 cup baking soda, half cup citric acid, 2 to 3 tablespoons witch hazel, 5 to 8 drops jasmine, yuzu, sakura blend, or bergamot, a pinch of dried blossoms. I recommend rose, jasmine, or cherry blossom. The ritual involves mixing your dry ingredients, spritz with the witch hazel until it holds shape when squeezed. Press into molds or ice cube trays. Let dry fully. Place one at the edge of your shower, not directly under the water, and let the steam lift the scent. As the fragrance rises, say, with each breath, I make space. With each exhale, I become lighter. Winter leaves the body in steam. Let it. Part 4, the spirit element, the rebirth rinse. Bringing release, cleansing, softness, forward motion. This step ties it all together. Your ingredients are warm water, a pinch of salt, and a few fresh flower petals, pink or white, your choice. Combine everything in a small bowl. When you are ready, pour the water over your back, never the top of your head, letting it flow down your spine, your shoulders, your heart. This is symbolic. This is somatic magic. This says, the past moves behind me. The future moves toward me. I choose my next becoming. Whisper, I wash away what clings. I welcome what grows. I return renewed. Part 5 is the integration, the soft courage of spring. Sit. Breathe. Feel your skin glowing. Feel your scalp nourished. Feel the scent lingering in the air. This is Ostara magic. Gentle, sensual, grounded, reborn. You don't need to roar to be powerful. You can bloom softly. You can grow gently. You can rise like a blossom. Quiet, deliberate, unstoppable. My bright ones, take a breath with me, in and out. Good. Now let's close this circle the way we opened it, not with noise, with intention. Tonight, we honored Ostara, the return of light, the soft insistence of spring, the season that arrives even when we're still afraid to believe in it. And we honored it in a way that matters, not by flattening the world into one story, not by pretending every culture celebrates the same way, but by remembering something sacred. Spring belongs to the earth, and the earth is wide. She is old. She is diverse. She is not asking us to reduce her to a single aesthetic. So tonight, we witnessed spring in the Far East with reverence, as guests, as listeners, as people who understand that respect is a form of magic. And we did something else tonight, too. We honored the canon of Ravensworld because the manor moved. Madhyapatika, the middle traveler, slid across the map like a living breath and settled into a landscape where renewal arrives like a whisper instead of a shout. And if you felt something in that, if the idea of a moving house stirred a strange kind of comfort in you, that makes sense. Because sometimes the world doesn't need you to have answers. Sometimes it just needs you to keep walking, to keep listening, to keep showing up at the threshold with your hands open. And tonight there was a visitor, a crane in the courtyard. Not as a lesson we have to dissect, not as a symbol we have to squeeze dry, just a presence, a quiet witness that seemed to say, you don't have to rush your rebirth. Spring doesn't demand that you explode into joy. Spring asks for something braver, that you begin softly, honestly, anyway. So before we close, I want you to take one small thing from tonight, one seed you can actually carry into your week. Not a dramatic vow, not a performance, just one true action. Maybe it's opening a window every morning for 5 breaths. Maybe it's drinking water like it's a blessing. Maybe it's clearing one corner of your home, one surface, one threshold, not because you should, but because you deserve to live in a space that feels breathable. Maybe it's letting yourself feel beautiful without apologizing for it. Maybe it's choosing rest without earning it first. Maybe it's saying yes to something that's been trying to return to you. Whatever it is, let it be small enough to be real, because the truth is, weird ones, most rebirths don't happen in thunder. They happen in tiny, repeated acts of care. If you're still in a winter season inside your own life, if you're still carrying grief, if you're still tired, if you're still afraid to hope, hear me. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply in the part of the cycle where the soil is still warming. Spring does not rush. Spring does not panic. Spring does not demand perfection. Spring returns because it is faithful, and so are you. So tonight, let this be your spell. Place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and speak this aloud. I welcome what is returning. I release what has ended. I bloom softly. I begin anyway. Breathe once more. In and out. Good. Carry that with you, not as a fantasy, as a practice, because you don't have to roar to be powerful. You can bloom softly. You can grow gently. You can rise like a blossom, quiet, deliberate, unstoppable. Blessed Ostara, weird ones, and I'll see you at the next threshold. If tonight stirred something in you, if a story caught, if a ritual settled into your bones, if a truth followed you into the quiet, that's the work. Quarter 2 is about thresholds, and thresholds aren't destinations, they're decisions. If you'd like to keep walking with me between episodes, you can find Raven's Lorecast on Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok. You can find me on Instagram at ravens_lore_cast. These are where the conversation continues, the visuals unfold, and the circle stays open. If you're called to go even deeper, the Patreon door is there when you're ready. No pressure, no chasing. Just another threshold you can step through when it feels true. Until next time, wit, wisdom, witchcraft. See you at the doorway, my weirdlings.